Have you ever thought about committing a coup d'etat? If you have, don't say that in the comments because you might get some people after you, and I have definitely not. I was just wondering. Just a question for you. Anyways, hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the FVI, also known as the First Volume Impressions, where I talk about a first volume or a one-shot and give you basically my review on it and whether it's worth picking up. So, we got ourselves another episode here, and I think it's gonna be my second shojo that I'm gonna be talking about. If you saw the title, I mean, you already kind of know, but I like to do it, give a little mystery, I guess. So let's get right with the video. Onwards. So this particular first volume comes from Yen Press here in English, but it was originally published by Bisatsu Margaret, which is a shoujo magazine, all the way back in 2010. So it has been 12 years since this series started, and I believe it ended in 2013 if I remember correctly. So it's been 9 years since it ended, and we just got the first volume. But you know, you gotta take what you can get. So our first volume here is No Longer Heroine by Momoko Koda. Like I said, it's brought to us by Yen Press. I believe it released in either late August or at the beginning of September. I'm pretty sure it's the beginning of September. And we have information that the editors are Won Young Seo and Ju Yoon Lee, as well as designed by Liz Parlett. So, here we go. Let's talk about our cover and our spine. And yeah, I mean, it's fine. I'm never really the biggest fan of the white cover with just like a character on the front because there's so many of those. But this one's not too bad. I mean, you can see like the style pretty shown well, like right through by Momoko Koda's art. So that's pretty cool. And I actually really like the font that they used for the title. I don't know, it's just really nice. And then of course the spine looks pretty normal, and back has got our male lead. I'm not going to talk about that too much yet because we're going to get into the characters first, and then I'll start talking about them. So, first character is Hattori Matsuzaki. Whew. A lot of these characters have very long names, so please bear with me as I try to read them. But she's the female lead, and the reason why it's titled the way it is because she thinks that she is the heroine or the main character or the main love interest in her love story with the male lead. So, yeah, she is very much your typical high school girl, or at least not typical, but like very much like that stereotype of super bully, really much big, really big freaking jerk to a lot of people, extremely petty. Yeah, she's very unlikable at the beginning. I will say that she does get a little bit of character growth throughout the first volume, so that's nice to see that to know that our main female lead isn't actually the worst person in the world. She's just a high school girl trying to deal with emotion. So respectable, and I think it's done in a good enough way that she is redeemable, or can be redeemable later in the story, so we appreciate that. Now, on the back, we got ourselves Rita Terasaka. I'm sorry, I have to read these names off of my notes because I have the hardest time reading their names. Anyways, this is Rita. He is the ladies' man. He is the guy that everyone falls in love with because he's just so hot and so cool. But he's known for being very shallow in his relationships. A lot of his relationships, at least like his dating relationships, usually end within like a week and don't really go anywhere. So it's really interesting to see how his character is going to go because we don't get a ton of growth per se. We do get some information here and there, bits and pieces that he doesn't like to open up to people typically. Like Hattori is like the only girl he really opens up to until later in the story, but I'm not going to spoil it or talk about that. So yeah, he's overall a genuinely nice character. Actually, he's very helpful. A lot of people like him because he's so helpful and so nice about it, I guess. So yeah, really respectable. But between the two of them, the cast, or like this main cast, it's not too bad. I do think you can get turned off by just the overall pettiness of the main character, Hattori, because she really does some pretty screwed up things within the first volume. So it's, I don't know, it's definitely a hit or miss. I wouldn't say it's for everybody. So, but for me, it's fine. Now, let's get into the story. So I kind of already talked about it a little bit. So the reason why it's called No Longer Heroine is because Hattori wants to be the main character or the heroine in the love story between her and Rita, her childhood friend. However, it doesn't work out like that because one, she's too nervous to ask him, and two, too busy trying to like push people away from him versus actually just asking him out. So he gets snatched up by another lady or another girl in the class, and they genuinely have a decent relationship. So she gets super pissy about it, and that's why she's no longer the heroine of the story. So yeah, I think it does a very good job of like kind of showing the twists and turns of relationships between friends, between people and love interests, and like kind of like not the word depression is not the right word, but like kind of trying to understand how characters work within romance. I think is the best way to put it. Like how you follow the trials and tribulations of her rejection and various other things, and how she grows as a character and realizes that being horrible to other people isn't gonna make the main character fall in love with her. So I think that's actually kind of interesting, and hopefully that goes throughout the entire series. But I'm not sure, of course, because this is only the first volume. But overall, I think the story is pretty good. It tackles some very normal topics, I think, in terms of relationships. So yeah, I genuinely like it. The story's pretty good. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the characters and stories. Let's get on to the art now. Okay, so let's talk about the art. So the art is actually very good. I think there's a lot of really hilarious faces that are drawn by Muroko Koda. Definitely some very perfect example. Very emotional faces. I think get the job done and make you just laugh out loud in a way. Overall, just I don't know. It's just very funny. And I think the art really plays well for the story. A lot of the comedic moments really hit for me. I was laughing my butt off. Mostly not because the writing is particularly like crazy good, but because the art really just like pushes like, oh, this character is supposed to be not very likable and she's kind of a jerk. And that's just how it is. So yeah, I do think a lot of the character designs are really nice. I do think a lot of the facial expressions are always really good. I've noticed that a lot of the series that I've been reading recently, especially the ones for this specific series, or like for FBI, a lot of the characters have really good facial expressions across the board. Maybe it's because I've been reading a lot of comedy recently, and you know, comedy really relies on those like super funny gags and the funny faces. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's done pretty well. I will say I think my one little gripe about it is that the backgrounds are almost non-existent for the most part. A lot of it is just like white backgrounds and stuff like that, or like screen tones or just like little bubbliness, which is not bad per se, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more because the backgrounds you do get to see are actually really nice, at least in terms of the environments. The school is drawn really well, and like the subway and various other parts that she decides to visit, along with the other main cast, done pretty well. So I just wish there was a little bit more here and there. Would have been appreciated. But overall, I know that was a shorter art part because there wasn't a lot to talk about without trying to spoil it too much because, you know, some of the character expressions do rely on reading the story, so I'm not going to try to show too much of it, so I'm going to stop right there. But I think overall, this is a pretty good story. I think I like it for a good amount, and I think it's pretty funny and pretty realistic to high school drama because, like, I know everyone's like, oh, blah, 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 like, it's just so, whatever, like, so, theatrical and whatever, but honestly, my high school experience was kind of like this, where people were just, like, absolute jerks, and were really mean to each other, and just, like, throwing shade at each other. I don't know, it's kind of, it's funny to look back at it now and be like, wow, high school kind of sucked pretty bad. So I think this does a fairly realistic interpretation of high school. Like, there's nothing that's like super crazy, you know what I mean? Like, oh, there's no car driving through like the school or something, like something you'd see in GTO or something like that. But yeah, so I think it's done fairly well. I can see why people don't tend to like the main cast too much, because like I said, the main character is just very unlikable, especially at the beginning, but I think she looks like she's going to start growing, which is pretty cool. And so is Rita. I think Rita will have some kind of, hopefully, some kind of story moving forward. I really appreciate that if he did. So overall, what I suggest is to everybody, no, if you're not like the biggest fan of like romantic comedies, I would say probably stay away from this. Or if you're like not a big fan of like a high school romance, also stay away from this. But I think this is done very well for what it's supposed to be. It appears to me that it's supposed to be like a satire of like shoujo romantic comedies or just romantic comedies in general. Because typically, you know, the romantic comedies that you'd read or you'd watch or whatever tend to have like the two main characters tend to be like the best of the best, or at least not recently, but recently they've gotten a little bit better in terms of diversity, and obviously in the past. But even with like any kind of romantic comedy, the main characters tend to be the most likable. So I think it's interesting that the main character in this one for the female cast or female actress or female character is not great, but she looks like she's gonna grow. So I really appreciate that, and I can't wait to see what happens in Volume 2. So, if you like this video, or if you like to know Longer Heroine Volume 1, please let me know in the comments below. I'd like to know what you guys think about it, or if you've read it before, or if my review for some reason swayed you to go and purchase this volume. So yeah, I'd really appreciate it. And you know what to do. You can like, comment, favorites, and subscribe. So I can hit to 600 subscribers at some point. I'm already at like 530, which is genuinely surprising to me. I really appreciate it. You guys are all awesome. And I really love your feedback with everything that I do, and I really feel like I've kind of hit my stride, and like I know what I want to do with the channel and what I want to do with videos, so I really appreciate it. And if you didn't do any of those 4 things I just said, then you can do what I always do and say I appreciate you for even watching this far into it, because that means you've watched about 10 minutes of a video. So thank you very much. Anyways, that's going to be it for this FVI, also known as the first volume impressions. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!